Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om. Param varishtham brahmishtham paramanandarupinam paramarthanandayatim sadgurum pranatosmyaham. Vasudevendra yogindram natva jnanapradam gurum mumukshunam hitarthaya Tattvabodho bhidiyate. So the analysis of the individual was concluded with the statement Evam Sachidananda Swarupam Swatmanam Vijaniyat. Basically, we studied that the individual is divided broadly into Atma and Anatma part. And then the Anatma was divided into 11 parts. The main part of the Anatma is the 3 Shariranis only, right? And we saw the 3 bodies. And then we saw the Pancha Kosha. And we also saw the Avasthatrayam, right? And these 3 inert bodies are blessed by the Atma Tattvam, which is the non-material consciousness principle. So it ultimately boils down to what? An Anatma and an Atma principle, right? An Atmanaha, the nature of the self was also defined of the consciousness as Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat meaning the eternal principle, Trikale api tishtati, that is in the past, present and the future, it is existing. Chit means the consciousness principle and Ananda means the nature of happiness. And just to, give a bit of, background about how vast this spreads, each of these aspects, Sat, Chit and Ananda, is analyzed in such great depth that one Upanishad just concentrates mainly on one of these aspects. Like that you have, if I have to just pick and give some examples, Chandogya Upanishad spends so much time on the Sat aspect. And you will see Taittiriya Upanishad talks a lot about the Ananda aspect. In Kathopanishad, there is again that Natatra Suryo Bhati Chandratarakam, that same verse. In the case of Mundaka Upanishad, it is associated with the consciousness and so much of discussion happens. Whereas in Kathopanishad, the discussion is all centered around Ananda Swarupa. So the point I wanted to say is Tattvabodha is a primer. So we won't be able to spend too much time on the Sat, Chit and Ananda aspect, but that is the crux of the entire Vedanta. And once you get that and then, you start dwelling into the teaching, that's when the assimilation starts happening. I just wanted to speak a few minutes about it. So let's come back to our topic. So Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat meaning the eternal principle. Chit means the consciousness principle. And Ananda means the nature of happiness. And with this, the individual analysis is over, right? So in the last class, we've now completed 2 topics in whole, and then we also entered the creation topic. So Suvarna Bhagini, can you chant after me? Yeah. Atha chaturvimshati tattvotpatti prakaram vakshyamaha.
Atha chaturvimshati tattvotpatti prakaram vakshyamaha.
Brahmashraya sattva rajastamo gunatmika mayasti.
Brahmashraya sattva rajastamo gunatmika mayasti.
Tata akashas sambhutaha.
तत आकाशः सम्भूतः
Akashat Vayuhu.
आकाशाद् वायुः
Vayos Tejaha.
वायोस्तेजः
Tejasa Apaha.
तेजस आपः
Adhyaf Prithvi.
अद्भ्यः पृथिवी
Atha indicates the complete change of topic. So until now, the individual was analyzed. Now we are analyzing the totality. So we've completed micro. We are going to macro in Sanskritam. From Vyashti, we are moving into Samashti. So the entire cosmos is divided into 24 tattvams. Atha chaturvimshati tattva utpatti prakaram vakshyamaha. So the 24 tattvams, what are they? We will see in detail. What is each one? We'll count what are the 24 numbers, etc. So the 24 put together is the total cosmos. Look at how simplified this creation has been done as compared to what we see in our sciences, etc. Just to appreciate, right? So the 24 put together is the total cosmos. And not only the cosmos is going to be discussed, its origination or manifestation is also going to be discussed. How the universe evolves or originates, right? So that is introduced. Chaturvimshati Tattvotpatti Prakaram. Brahma Ashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Right? And the topic is initiated. Brahma Ashraya Satya Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya. So in the last class, I spoke about the concept of Maya, and basically each universe is not created out of nothing. Like even in our modern science, we know that as per law of conservation of matter and energy, right, nothing can be created, or, that is, matter cannot be created or destroyed. And universe already existed in seed form. And just as every tree that you experience, right, on the road or in the forest has come out of a seed. So similarly, everything was there potentially in some form, in unmanifest form or dormant condition. So extending this, the Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram must have been there in the potential form, which is the Karana Shariram. We said that. And now we are extending the same thing to the macro level. So the Sthula Prapancha must have existed in seed form. Right? The universe in seed form, we call Karana Prapancha. So Karana Shariram is the seed form of our body. Karana Prapancha is the seed form of the gross universe. So gross body in the form of Karana Shariram, gross universe in the form of Karana Prapancha. So basically in science, we discuss Big Bang theory, etc. Right? And we say that there was a state of nothingness. We didn't know what happened before that, etc. Right? But Vedanta answers that everything was there in potential form. Right? This means at that time, even time had not manifested. So you can't even say that time. So pre-creation, there was no time also. Right? Even space was not there. So that unmanifest form is Karana Prapancha. So here, the only difference in the study of, say, Samashti and Vyashti, the difference is that we started from Sthula Shariram, then went to Sukshma Shariram, and then we went to Karana Shariram. The order was gross to subtle to causal. So now while analyzing the macro or the Samashti, we are starting from the Karana Prapancha, right? And Karana Prapancha has got several names, and one name is Maya. And if you want to understand what is Maya, you have to try and remember the definition of Karana Shariram. What was Karana Shariram's definition? Anirvachyam, meaning you cannot define it as existent or non-existent. Anirvachya anadi, anirvachyam anadi avidya rupam. That is the definition of Karana Shariram. It's the same definition for Maya also. At individual level, we name it avidya. At the cosmic level, we name it Maya. So Karana Shariram is called avidya. Karana Prapancha is called Maya. And both are anirvachyam, inexplicable, and anadi, meaning beginningless principle. So this Maya was there, right? And it is otherwise called Karana Prapancha, which is also there before creation. So now the question will be, okay, is it Chetanam or Achetanam? Now, if the gross universe is Achetanam, inert, Maya also must have been in potential matter or potential energy form. And if matter is inert, right, then this Maya also should be Achetanam only, right? So all this we covered. I just wanted to make sure that I quickly revise. Thus, Maya was there before the manifestation, before the evolution or manifestation. Maya was very much there. Okay, if Maya was there, was something else also there? So we talk about Atma. Atma, which was defined as Satchit Ananda, right? And Sat is existing in 3 periods of time, right? We saw that. And so we say not only the inert Maya was there, but the same eternal consciousness principle, right, of the nature of Satchitananda was there at that time also. So just as we gave a name, right, Avidya for Karana Shariram and Maya for Karana Prapancham, right? So at the micro level, it is called Atma. The same consciousness at macro level is called Brahman. So therefore, Atma and Brahman are the same consciousness at micro and macro level. So Avidya and Maya are the same matter at micro and macro level. And if Brahman was there at that time, if Maya was there, there was Brahman. Both Brahman and Maya were existing. So therefore, Brahmashraya Maya Asti. So Maya, the Karana Prapancha, right? Brahmashraya, depending upon, supported by or blessed by Brahman, was there. Just as our body is blessed by Atma, Maya is blessed by Brahman. Then what? The author says, this Maya has 3 features. To account for what? The 3 faculties experienced by all the living beings. So Maya has got 3 features. So the question will naturally come, oh, then what are those 3 features? What is that is experienced by human beings, right? One is called the knowing faculty. Throughout the day, we keep knowing various things with the help of the Pancha Jnanendriyani, the sense organs of knowledge. Through Jnanendriyani, throughout the day, we are continuously learning, perceiving, etc., right? Learning faculty. Then the second thing is we have got doing faculty or responding faculty, right? When you are, say, walking, suppose you see something and then you suddenly turn, right? So first, the registration happens through Jnana Shakti, which is through Jnanendriyani. Then the faculty of doing happens and you move your leg or hand. So that's a Karmendriyani which is working, right? So other than these 2, there is no other transaction. All worldly transactions can be reduced to 2 transactions, which is knowing and doing. If you think of your dream experience, right? There also you have got your sense organs, the dream sense organs, and there also you jump, you run away, you perceive a dog or a tiger and run away, right? So you're constantly operating between these 2 faculties, right? Now, the whole day knowing, you get tired. So when both the knowing and doing faculties, right? Both of them get tired over the day, right? Then you use the 3rd faculty, which is the Dravya Shakti, which is resting faculty, right? So that's the 3rd one. So you go to a state of inertia and you go to sleep and then you feel refreshed, right? That's the resting faculty. And people say, I slept like a log, right? So where are these resting? They are all resting. All these faculties are resting in potential form in Maya, right? In the Maya Shakti. Therefore, Maya has got 3 gunas. Sattva representing the knowing faculty, Rajas representing the doing faculty, and Tamas representing the resting faculty. So therefore, the author says, before the universe manifested, Brahman was there And Maya was there with all these faculties in dormant form, right? So Sattva, Rajas, Tamo, Gunatmika. So they are the three gunas, and they are there at the Maya level, but they are not operational. When the time for evolution comes at the appropriate time, right? The scientists say the world evolves, it's a random event, right? But our Shastra says, no, we'll see in greater detail, says as the karma matures and the samashti karma comes together, and that balance of sattva, rajas, and tamo guna gets shifted, that is when the evolution starts, right? So the scriptures say that the evolution of universe is based on the law of karma. And what is the law of karma? We will study at the end of Tattvabodha. As of now, we'll just note this much. According to law of karma, punyam and papam, right? Not individual punya papam. We are talking about the samashti, the macro level. Our universe is a result of what we do, right? There are sayings. They say we are doing a lot of bad things. That is why, our environment is getting worse and oxygen is a problem, water is a problem, etc. Right? So here, according to the law of karma, when we say it is the samashti punya papa, that is at the universe level, right? So the punya papa of the samashti will bring about a disturbance in the equilibrium of sattva, rajas, and tamas. And when the equilibrium is disturbed, even according to science, we see, according to Newton's law of motion, every object remains in a state of rest or uniform motion unless it is disturbed by an external factor. So similar thing happens here. So the three gunas are in a state of equilibrium unless it is disturbed, and the disturbance is caused by the law of karma operating. The moment the disturbance happens, Maya, the Karana Prapancha, starts evolving, and it is not a sudden change or anything. It is a gradual process. We call it evolution. Just as a seed doesn't become a full-fledged seed in one night or even 1 hour or whatever it is, right? It becomes a plant and then it becomes a big tree and then you have fruits, etc. Similarly, Maya also doesn't suddenly become cosmos. So it is present in 2 stages, just as Stula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram we talk about. Here at the universe level also, Karana Prapancha gradually becomes, from Karana Prapancha, it will become Sukshma Prapancha, and then it will become Stula Prapancha. So the scripture points out, right, that out of Maya, initially the 5 elements are evolving. So 5 basic elements, which are the raw material out of which the whole Karana Prapancha is created. And from that, the raw material evolves. And what are they? Pancha Bhutani. So modern science talks of so many elements, hundreds of elements, right? Now, we only talk about Pancha Bhutani, right? And here we are not talking about the gross version, but we are talking about the Sukshma Bhutani, subtle elements of the universe itself, the building blocks, right? So the Karana Prapancha, from the Karana Prapancha, the Sukshma Shariram or Sukshma Prapancha or Sukshma Bhutani are created, right? So in the Sukshma Prapancha, automatically, you must understand it's a sum of everything, right? So Stula Sharirams are also there. So Stula Bhutani, so from Karana Prapancha, you have this Sukshma Prapancha, which comprises of the Sukshma Bhutani, Sukshma Sharirani, all of them will evolve. Then from that, as a next step, the Stula Bhutani, the Stula Prapancha, the Stula Sharira. Basically, from causal to subtle to your gross Prapancha will evolve. Therefore, the teacher says here, Tataha Akashaha Sambhutaha. The 5 elements are born. The first element is Akashaha. And what type of Akasha? This is Sukshma Akasha was born. And according to scripture, each of these 5 Panchabhutanis has its own specific and unique attributes. We'll see this quickly, and I will start putting out charts and pictures so that it will be easy for you to relate. And the 5 elements have got Pancha Gunaha, which can be perceived by the Pancha Indriyani. So every element has got a guna, right? And these are the Pancha Gunas, and these can be perceived by the Pancha Indriyani. So Pancha Bhutani, they will have Pancha Guna, and the attributes or properties are recognizable by Pancha Indriyani. So from Akasha, Vayu, from Vayu, Tejaha, that is Agni, from Agni, waters, Apaha, and from waters, you have the Prithvi Tattvam. So this is the order of creation. Okay. So, according to the scriptures, the attribute of Akasha is Shabda Guna. Okay. So, Shabda means the sound is the attribute of Akasha, right? So, Shabda is the sound is the attribute of Akasha. So, in the Sukshma Akasha, the Sukshma Shabda Guna is there. And later in Stula Akasha, we will get Stula Shabda Guna. So, therefore, in space, always there is sound. We are not able to detect it. And if you want to detect, you require very fine ears. And they say that rishis could actually listen into this, the pure sound in Akasha, right? They compare it to something like our white light from which the Vibgyor comes, that kind of sound, right? So the Omkara Shabda pervades all over the Akasha, and that Omkara alone is converted into alphabetical sounds by our mouth. Exactly like the white light gets distributed, something similar to that. So the basic all-pervading Shabda is always there in the Akasha, and by the movement of our mouth, we are converting the basic Omkara Shabda into a, I, etc. By moving our mouth, we are producing that sound, and we are converting the already existing Omkara into alphabetical letters. Therefore, Akasha has got Shabda Guna, very important. And it is recognized by one Indriyam, which is Shrotra Indriyam, basically the ears. The space and the ears are interconnected. So, Tataha, from that Maya, Akasha is born, and then from that Akasha, Vayu, right? Vayu is the next one which is born. And Vayu has got Sparsha Guna, the feeling of touch is there, right? The feeling of touch is there, and this can be recognized. Vayu can be recognized by two sense organs, basically. Very interesting. So our skin and Vayu are interconnected. Vayu has got a Vishesha Guna, a special property called touch. All special properties are shown here by dark green, and the acquired property is shown in light green, so that you will be able to relate. Okay. So the touch is the original, the Vishesha Guna of Vayu. And since it is born out of Akasha, it will also inherit the parents' property. So just as children inherit the parents' features, right? So Vayu inherits the property of Akasha, which is the Shabda, right? So Vayu has got two properties, Shabda and Sparsha. So when the wind is blowing, we can hear the blowing in the ears, and we can also feel it on our hands and our legs. So Akasha has got one guna, and Vayu, being its offspring, has got two gunas. Then from Vayu, Tejaha. So Vayu Tattvam gives rise to Agni Tattvam. So Agni has got this incandescent brightness, right? So the brightness or the color is the special property of Agni, which can be seen by the eyes, right? So Agni and Chakshu are connected. And Agni has a special property of Rupam, Rupam meaning the brightness, and it also has got the inherited property of both the Vayu and Akasha. So you will have all the three properties here. So the Ushna Sparshaha, the touch, the heat, right? That is borrowed from Vayu. And when the fire is moving violently, a huge conflagration of fire is seen moving, and you can also hear the sound of the fire, right? So Agni has got Shabda, Sparsha and Rupam. And the fourth one is From Tejasaha, Apaha. So from Tejas Tattvam, the Jala Tattvam comes. And this is all not gross, right? This is all in subtle form, Sukshma. So first we're talking about Sukshma Agni here. From Sukshma Agni, Sukshma Jalam is born. And the Karya Karana Sambandha is there between Sukshma Agni and Sukshma Jalam. And water has got its own unique property, which is basically the taste, right? Rasa. And exactly like Vibgyor, there is this white light, and from there you get everything. Similarly, water, right? It is basically tasteless, right? But in the presence of water, all other tastes are manifested. So water is the potential state which contains all the taste of water is the potential state which contains all the other tastes. So that is the rasaha. So in Sanskrit, Jalam has got rasam as the Vishesha Guna. It has also got inherited other properties like Shabda, Sparsha, and Rupam. So 3 borrowed and 1 inherited property. So therefore, it has got 4 properties. Akasha has got 1 property recognizable by 1 sense organ, which is the ear. Vayu has got 2 properties, therefore recognizable by 2 sense organs. Agni can be recognized by 3 sense organs. Jalam can be recognized by 4 sense organs. Whatever can be recognized by more sense organs is called grosser one. And whatever can be recognized by the subtler one, by lesser number of sense organs, it is subtler. So Akasha is subtle, Vayu is grosser, Agni is still more grosser, Jalam is more gross, right? And then, of course, because Jala Tattvam can be identified by 4 Indriyams. Now we've covered 4 of them. And then we have 1 more, which is Prithvi Tattvam. The Prithvi Tattvam, the Sukshma Prithvi is born out of Sukshma Jalam, and Prithvi has got its own Vishesha Guna, Gandha or smell. And that smell of earth, you can actually smell when the first rain falls, right? On the earth, right? So that is the Vishesha Guna, Vasana Gandhavati Prithvi, it is said. So all the Pancha Bhutani are connected to the Pancha Indriyani, right? And earth has got just 1 Vishesha Guna, which is smell, and it has inherited all the previous gunas like Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, and Rasa. Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Gandha, all of them you see as the other acquired properties in this Prithvi, right? So they are all related to the Jnanendriyani. So now you can see the relationship also between the Pancha Bhutani and the Pancha Jnanendriyani. Now the author wants to say, from the Pancha Sukshma Bhutani, the Pancha Sukshma Indriyani are created. So from the Pancha Sukshma Bhutani, Pancha Sukshma Indriyani. So the subtle sense organs are created. So each element will create that particular Indriyam which can recognize the property of that element. I'll show you quickly in a chart. So each element will generate a sense organ which can recognize the properties of the parental element. So now Akasha has got what guna? Shabda guna. So Shabda guna can be recognized by ear. Therefore, Akasha Bhutam is responsible for the Utpatti of Shrotra Indriyam. Vayu Bhutam is responsible for the creation of Sparsha Indriyam. Similarly, Agni is responsible for Chakshu Indriyam. Jalam is responsible for Rasa Indriyam. Prithvi Tattvam is responsible for Gandha Indriyam. So it creates a sense organ to recognize its own property, right? So this is what is going to be said here. So you can see this. Now, we saw that Maya also has got 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and from that Maya alone, all of these have originated. So we've got a law, the parental properties are inherited by the children. So that is why always you see that the children look similar to the parents, etc., right? So in Sanskrit, this law is presented as Karana gunaha karye anuvartante. Right? So, if Maya has got 3 gunas, the scripture says all the Panchabhutani also have got 3. So, Sattva Akasha, you can see this here. So, you have Sattva Akasha, you have a Rajas Amsha of the Akasha, and you have a Tamas Amsha for Akasha. Right? So, similarly, for each of the elements, you can see this. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So the Tamas is in the center. Sattva and Rajas is put here for convenience sake because of representation. Right? So now let's continue. Etesham panchatattvanam.
Etesham panchatattvanam.
Madhya akashasya satvikamsha shrotrendriyam sambhutam.
Madhya akashasya satvikamsha shrotrendriyam sambhutam.
Vayo satvikamsha tvagindriyam sambhutam.
Vayo satvikamshat tvagindriyam sambhutam.
Agne satvikamsha chakshurindriyam sambhutam.
Agne satvikamshat chakshurindriyam sambhutam.
Jalasya satvikamsha rasanendriyam sambhutam.
Jalasya satvikamshat rasanendriyam sambhutam.
Prithivya satvikamsha granendriyam sambhutam.
Prithivya satvikamshat granendriyam sambhutam.
Etesham panchatattvanam.
Etesham panchatattvanam.
Samashti satvikamshan mano buddhyahankara chittantakarnani sambhutani.
Samashti satvikamshan mano buddhyahankara chittantahkaranani sambhutani.
So another important observation the author has made about the Maya having the 3 gunas corresponding to the 3 faculties that we experience. The knowing faculty, doing faculty, and the resting faculty. So Sattva guna corresponds to knowing faculty, Rajoguna corresponds to doing faculty, Tamo guna corresponds to resting faculty. Now the author is going to talk about the evolution of all the organs enumerated in the Sukshma Shariram. Right? So Sukshma Shariram, we talked about 17 organs. So 5 sense organs of knowledge, 5 sense organs of action, then 5 pranas, and then the mind and intellect. So 17 organs were introduced. Now the author is adding 2 more, so that there will be 19, right? And the evolution of these 19 organs called 19 Tattvani. So we've already seen Panchabhutani, right? They are the Panchatattvani. And then you add it to this 19, you get totally 24. So that's the count. Basically, 17 was already done. 2 more he's adding, the author. We'll see that. And then along with it, we have this Panchabhutani, which makes it 24. So first we've taken up the evolution of Pancha Jnanendriyani, and we learned from the Pancha Bhutani, the Pancha Jnanendriyani originates, right? So we saw that. So from the Sattvika part of each organ, right, from each element creates a particular organ, and the creation is in such a way that the organ can recognize the properties of the element. Now the author wants to add, right, mind and intellect aspects. So even though we count mind and intellect as 2, we should note that they are not 2 organs, but 2 functional names of one and the same internal organ. And in Sanskrit, the inner organ is called Antakaranam. And this Antakaranam alone has got 4 functional names. So previously we had 2 names. That is why we had 17. Now we are going to have 2 more names. So totally 4. So manas and buddhi was already there. Now two more are added, memory and ego. The person who asked me a question on chittam, please listen to this attentively. Now, two more are added, memory and ego. Ego means the I sense. So the mind, intellect, memory, and the sense of I. These are the four. Self-identification. Now, the self-awareness extends to only these three sharirani, right? So I know that this is me. I don't take this desk which is in front of me or the laptop in front of me as me. So it is just restricted to the three sharirams, that strong I feeling, right? So I never get confused about this. And this is the self-awareness, right? The I thought. So that is the ego, basically. And ego is not a negative word. It's not, arrogance or anything. It is the self-awareness, which is referred to here as the ego, right? So the self-identity is called ahankara. And because it's called ahankara, we shouldn't be thinking that it is arrogance. No, it is just representing the ego, the I, the self-identity. So the humble self is called ego, the self-identity. So all these are basically only four functional names of the one internal organ. So this internal organ also evolves out of Panchabhutani, and how the author says, from the sattva guna of all the Panchabhutanis. Okay? Basically, from the sattva guna of all the Panchabhutani, the antakaranam actually evolves. Right? So, etesham panchatattvanam. He uses the word tattvam to indicate the 5 elements are considered as panchatattvani. And then, of course, the 19 organs are also considered as tattvani later on, right? So, he says, from this, it is evolving. The jnanendriyanis were born. Similarly, the antakaranam is also born out of the sattva aspect of all of them put together. Right? So, etesham panchatattvanam samashti sattvikamshat. From the sattva guna of akasha, similarly, all 5, they'll be pooled together, right? And then this will evolve, right? So only one organ with 4 names. Exactly like somebody calls a person, say, trustee, then they also call him a managing director of another company, then he's father elsewhere. So they are just multiple roles, that's all, right? So of the same antakaranam, manaha, buddhi, chittam and ahankaraha. So manaha, the mind, buddhi, the intellect, ahankara, the ego or self-identity, and chittam means the memory, right? So all of them are very, very important, because if this memory is not there, we will not be able to retain anything that we study, right? Or we see. That is very important. All the 4 organs are extremely important, right? So antakaranam is not the 5th one, but it's the group which is referred to as antakaranam. Now the author wants to define each organ, right? So previously, while discussing Sukshma Shariram, we talked about Pancha Jnanendriyani, Pancha Karmendriyani, etc. We discussed that, right? So while talking about the Indriyani, we also talked about the Vishaya and the Devata. Both we saw, right? So for Pancha Indriyani, we had Pancha Vishaya and we also had Pancha Devata, right? The concept of Devata was explained. I don't want to get into again the Devatas associated with each one, but I will have a table which I'll show you any case. So we had Jnanendriya Devata, we had Karmendriya Devata, right? So here the author has introduced 4 internal organs, and we have to talk about their areas of operation and the Devata also. So how many organs? Mano, Manaha, Buddhi, Chittam and Ahankara. So all 4 we need to discuss the Vishayam, meaning the area of operation, and the 4 Devatas, right? We have to discuss this. So for the inner organ, Antakaranam also, we have to look at Vishaya and the deity, which is what we are going to be seeing. Sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha.
Sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha.
Nishchayatmika buddhihi.
Nishchayatmika buddhihi.
Ahankarta ahankaraha.
Ahankarta ahankaraha.
Chintana kartricittam.
Chintana kartricittam.
Manaso devata chandramaha.
Manaso devata chandramaha.
Buddher brahma.
Buddher brahma.
Ahankarasya rudraha.
Ahankarasya rudraha.
Chittasya vasudevaha.
Chittasya vasudevaha.
So, sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha. So the mind has got several functions, including all emotional functions, which belong to the mind only, right? So here he is mentioning among several functions, one of them, which is very important, which is the capability to analyze the pros and cons before assessing and deciding, right? So studying the pros and cons, whether this job is okay or that job is okay, or, sometimes when you're choosing, right, your career, you're analyzing the pros and cons, etc., right? So the discrimination process is called sankalpa, right? And sankalpa is basically pros and vikalpa is meaning the cons. So one is positive and the other is negative. So you add both or you analyze both, and then if you have a confusion, you write down, and then you kind of discuss and see, you keep vacillating between the two, that stage, right? So sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha, it is happening in the form of various thoughts in the mind. So the function of the internal organ takes place in the form of the thought process, and it is in the form of antakarana vritti parinamaha. Vritti means thought. So parinama means process. So antakarana vritti parinama is the process of operation of the internal organs, right? So when the vrittis or thoughts are in the process of judging, it is called manaha. Then after a lot of judging, ultimately, because there is a particular time when you have to decide, right? You can't keep on postponing the decision. Then the deciding faculty, the confirming faculty, which is called the buddhi, comes in. So nishchayatmika buddhi, right? A decisive one is the buddhi. The buddhi takes the decision after all the analysis is over. So that is the buddhi's part. And then the next one is ahankarta. Ahankarta means that internal thought which has got a self-identity or self-awareness. So when the eyes perceive something and the ears listen to something, right? So the eyes, they are not doing what the ears hear, right? Ears do not know what the eyes see. But there is someone else other than the eyes and ears who identify with the eyes and ears and say, oh, I heard and I saw. So the one which identifies, the coordinates, or basically coordinates all the Jnanendriyani and Karmendriyani, that coordinator between the two, right, with associated with the I itself, the self-identity, that is what is meant by ahankarta. And who says I am, right? He is the ahankritihi, or ahankriti is another name for ahankara, right? So the self-identity aspect is called ahankara. So throughout the life, right, the self-identity continues and the body changes, all that happens, but the self-identity is a very unique individuality called the ahankara. Then the fourth one is chintana kartru. Whatever helps the mind in analyzing pros and cons, right? Because when the mind is judging anything, it always takes advantage of our past experiences. You can never assess or judge something without past experience or past knowledge. Then that's not correct, right? So if you're able to understand this conversation, it is because you have learned English sometime in your childhood. you know the vocabulary, and the mind remembers all of this, right? You're not listening to these words for the first time, at least the normal English communication that I'm having, right? So these stored imprints or resources is called memory, and this faculty is called chittam, right? So this alone helps in analyzing further. So therefore, chintana kartru is otherwise called memory faculty, which is chittam. And that is why a person with experience is able to make better decisions, right? So, in fact, as Swamiji says, somebody asked a very senior person in the corporate saying, what is the secret of your success? So he said, right decisions. So then somebody asked him, oh, what's the secret of right decisions? And he said, experience. And then he said, so the secret of experience. And he said, wrong decisions, right? So wrong decisions gave experience, and that helped him in making right decisions, right? So for all of this, that memory, the storage is very, very important, and that is called chittam. So all the four faculties are equally important. Memory recollecting faculty, analyzing faculty, deciding faculty, self-identity faculty, all four put together is called antakaranam, right? So we have seen the area of operation now, the devata. So corresponding to each one, we have a devata, right? So manas devata is Chandrama, Chandra devata or the moon deity. So in our culture also, we hear and see many times they talk about the moon and mind being interconnected. They say during Amavasa and Pournami, the mind is influenced, and those who have mental problems, they say go through issues at that time, right? So in Veda, it is said, Chandrama manaso jataha chakshus suryo ajayata mukhat indrascha agnischa pranat vayurajayata. So this is there in Purusha Suktam, right? So the devatas are mentioned even in the Veda Purva Bhaga, right? So we have to remember that all the Vedic mantras basically connect the Indriya Vishaya and the Devata also. And that is why the prayers are offered to those particular Devatas, right? So, and Manaso Devata Chandrama, and then Buddhehe Brahma, and then for basically Chandrama for Manas, then you have Brahma for Buddhi, because Brahma stands for confirmed knowledge. That is why. And Brahma Shakti is very important. And so therefore Brahma is the presiding deity of Buddhi. Ahankarasya Rudraha, right? For Ahankara, the self-identity, why is it Rudra? Because Rudra stands for anger. Because I have a strong self-identity, I expect everybody to treat me as I want, right? So the expectations, the ego, and the deeper the expectations, if something doesn't happen, it causes more of angst and anger, right? And Rudra is the presiding deity for this. And then, of course, we have Chittaha, right? So the last one is Chittaha. Chittasya Vasudevaha, not Chittaha. Chittasya Vasudevaha, and Lord Vishnu is the presiding deity for Chittam, because he is the Lord of preservation. That is why Vishnu is the deity, right? We have to remember. And preservation, the Lord is Vishnu. So Vasudevaha. So we've already spoken about the Vishaya and the Devata for the Jnanendriyanis as well as for the Karmendriyanis. So I just brought it up again. You can go back to those slides and those sessions and refresh your memory. Right? And we saw up to Prana also that time. Prana, I took it from another Upanishad and showed it. And then now the 16, 17, 18, 19 are completed. So with this 19 and those 5, right, it makes it to 24 tattvas. So that's the count of 24. Now we have covered the Jnanendriyani and Antakaranam, the origination. Now we have to discuss the Karmendriyani, which represents action, right? Because Karmendriyani has got doing faculty. They do not have any knowing faculty. Hands can only do something. It cannot know things, right? So if you say touch, then touch will become Jnanendriyani, not Karmendriyani, right? So no Karmendriyani can know anything, basically. It is only doing action, right? So it's very important. So what it does is the karmendriyani cannot know anything. So they are very useful. First, the jnanendriyani, for instance, suppose there is a chasing dog. The eye sees the chasing dog and the eyes can report the chase. And when the eyes see a chasing dog and the chase is reported, right? The next, what happens? The coordinating brain, mind, and buddhi has to send a message to the leg, the karmendriyani, to run, saying, okay, run, right? So the responding organ is karmendriyani. Now the question is, karmendriyani are generated out of what? It says the same panchabhutani only. The same 5 elements which generated the jnanendriyani, the same 5 elements generate the 5 karmendriyanis. Then what is the difference? Jnanendriyani was generated out of sattva guna, whereas karmendriyani should be generated out of the rajoguna of the panchabhutani. Because rajas stands for doing faculty, and that is what is going to come. Etesham panchatattvanam madhya akashasya rajasam samshad vagendriyam sambhutam.
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्य आकाशस्य राजसांशाद् वागिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायो राजसांशात् पाणीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्.
वायो राजसांशात् पाणीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वह्ने राजसांशात् पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्.
वह्ने राजसांशात् पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य राजसांशात् गुदेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्.
जलस्य राजसांशात् गुदेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्या राजसांशात् उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्.
पृथिव्या राजसांशात् उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
एतेषां समष्टि राजसांशात् पञ्चप्राणा सम्भूताः.
एतेषां समष्टि राजसांशात् पञ्चप्राणाः सम्भूताः.
So the origination of the 5 sense organs, the karmendriyani, have been enumerated while discussing sukshma shariram, and karmendriyani areas have also been discussed, and devata has also been discussed. So indriya vishaya devata was already covered, right? Here now the origination is being discussed. So tesham panchatattvanam, right? Panchabhutanam, bhutani, that is the tattvam. From that, madhye, among them, akashasya rajasamshat, from the rajoguna of the akasha, the first karmendriyani, the most powerful, most important karmendriyani, namely the organ of speech, is born. Vagindriyam. And we should carefully note that all these indriyams belong to sukshma shariram and not the stula shariram. We have not yet come to the stula shariram. Okay. So the gross part is called the golakam, right? We saw that. Please remember that. So that is the golakam. Even a dumb person will have the golakam. So it is not that we are talking about. It is the power of the speech, the invisible organ of speech behind the visible tongue. That is what we are speaking about. So vagindriyam sambhutam. It is very, very important. And in the case of human being, it is really evolved, the vagindriyam, as compared to several other animals and, other living beings, right? So much of, because of the language, we have acquired so much knowledge, etc. And because of speaking only, all this has emerged, right? So vagindriyam is born. Then from vayo rajasamshat, panindriyam, right? Another set of powerful organs, which is the hand, is born, right? So pani is powerful. Then vanne rajasamshat padendriyam. Another powerful organ is the leg, right? So that comes from the Agni Tattvam. Then jalasya rajasamshat budendriyam. The removal of or excretion, that organ, which is very, very important to remove the waste, solid and liquid waste. So that is the jalasya rajasamshat, from jalam, jalasya rajasic part aspect. Then finally, prithivyaha rajasamshat upasthendriyam sambhuta. Upastha standing for the organ of reproduction or procreation, because of which alone the species of every living being is propagated and perpetuated, right? So thus Pancha Karmendriyani from the Rajoguna of the individual elements, right? So now the Pancha Prana, the pranic energy which sustains all the Karmendriyani, which lend energy to all the Karmendriyani, that Pancha Prana is born out of the Rajoguna of all the 5 elements put together, because Prana has to bless, right? So Prana has to bless all the Karmendriyas. Therefore, it is created out of the Samashti Rajoguna. So please focus on this, and you will be able to understand. It's not very difficult, except that you have to go through the chart very carefully, right? So from the Brahman and Maya, you see that all of these were there, the Sattva, Tamas and Rajas. Then this side, you got the Jnanendriyam from the Sattva aspects, and of course the mixed from all the elements, the Sattva aspect, we had the Antakaranam. Similarly, on this side, from all the Rajoguna of all the elements, we have Pranatattvam, and then you have the individual Rajoguna. From that, you have the Karmendriyanis emerging, right? So, because Rajas stands for doing, it's very logical to relate that the Pranatattvam is associated with it and the Karmendriyani are associated with it. So, etesham samashti rajasamshat pancha pranaha sambhutaha. So, the key points. So, each subtle element has got 3 gunas. And first we saw the Sukshma Bhuta Srishti. Then all the Sukshma Sharirams are born out of Sukshma Bhutani. The Pancha Jnanendriyani, the Antakaranani, the Pancha Karmendriyani, and Pancha Pranadayaha. Okay. So we will stop here. Please go through this again, because a lot has been communicated and you need the picture. You might need a printout to understand and assimilate all this. In the next class, we will be talking about the gross elements and the grossification itself, how that happens. It is called Panchikaranam. It's a very, very beautiful subject by itself. So next class, we will do the grossification part. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yeah, I'm just. Revati ji.
Yes, madam. I have a small doubt. Towards the end, you told us about the first one is the speech which comes, and then it follows, the others follow. Okay. Now, speech, then how will my doubt is, Rajat Guna is the one which is responsible for the Karmendriyan. Okay. So, a person who is a very angry person, a calm person, how is it differentiated? Is it because of the variation in the Rajat Guna?
Yeah, it is. See, and we will be seeing an individual will have different levels of Sattva Guna and Rajoguna and Tamo Guna in that personality, right? So based on that, whether you're impulsive or not, whether your mind is calm or not, because through upasana, etc., the mind could have calmed down also. So you already saw that the antakaranam is kind of the controlling factor, right? So it plays a role. And that is how people are different.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Vasudev ji.
Namaste. Now this Dravya Shakti, that can be considered as, what do we have? Jnana, Kriya, and
Dravya
Shakti.
Dravya Shakti is inertia, basically.
So So we talk of three things like Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti,
and Dravya Shakti. There we talk about Ichcha Shakti.
yes, so
In the
Dravya
context
Shakti.
of the goddess, we talk about Ichcha Shakti. That is desire.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
And the other question I have is Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chitta, all these are part of Antakarana. So can you say somebody has a strong Antakarana or weak Antakarana depending on those faculties?
Basically, a person is born a particular way, and then using free will, we are anyway looking at Upasana, we are looking at Karma Yoga, etc. Right? All of them operate at that level and bring about Shuddhi of the Antakarana. So you're right. That is what determines your personality finally.
Yeah. So like when there is Chitta Shuddhi, probably the memory will increase.
Good. Basically, we wouldn't say memory, because the memory can be bad vasanas and good vasanas. So refined vasanas will be there.
Dhanyawad.
Okay, Sri Ramji.
Just a word of thank you to both you and Swami Paramahananda for excellent exposition and organization of this information. Very useful. I've seen it before. Your exposition is very good and enough material for us to do. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just following Swamiji's method, that's all. Okay, thank you. Yogi, please go ahead.
Namaste, Mahoday. We typically say Prithvi, Apas, Tejo, Vayu, Akashat in that order. That is from gross to subtle.
Correct.
You went the other way around from subtle to gross in the cycle.
Correct. Because this is creation.
Okay.
That is why. Because we're coming down from Akasha to the grosses, that's all.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Dhanyawad.
Poorna Chandra, please.
Namaste, Mahoday. When we are talking about the Panchabhutas and the Gunas associated, we talked about example of fire, Agni. How come Agni smell was, with Agni we definitely have smell, no?
We don't have smell for Agni. It is something else which is causing the smell. Otherwise, Agni doesn't have smell.
Huh? Okay, this is a revelation for me now.
Yeah, it's like water, no? If I say tasteless today.
No, water is tasteless, but fire does have smell. No, is it heat?
Fire doesn't have smell actually, if you see. Only when it's mixed with something that smell comes.
No, fire will only happen when it is mixed with something, right? No? No, it's okay.
No, for instance, a puja light where there is no, the deepam in the puja room doesn't have any smell. It doesn't have anything, because only when it is, say, a camphor or it's a batti or something, then the smell comes. So in its pure form, we're talking about the
The
sake form.
smell, if, for example, the smell to be carried, vayu has to be there. Otherwise, smell will not be. For example, when we talk Prithvi as the smell, it gets added. If vayu was not.
No. We are not talking about the operations of any of these. We are talking about in its
Standalone.
purest form, what is the characteristic
Of the guna, on a standalone basis.
Yes, that's all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mom.
Yeah. Mahabala, please go ahead. Okay. I think, let me check the question and answers. Where do the emotions fit in? Does Prapancha have emotions? Okay. the emotions get converted into chittam in a way, the memory, and they get stored in the sukshma shariram. And when all the sukshma sharirams, right, go back into the sukshma prapancha, that is at the time of pralayam, in a way, you can interpret it as, yes, emotions become vasanas or memory in chittam, which is sukshma shariram, and from sukshma shariram, it is in the sukshma prapancha only. Then, okay, I hope I've answered this. Yeah, go ahead.
Kshamyata, while you were speaking about that's Sankalpa Vikalpatmaka, I remembered Dikshita's Kriti, Sri Nilotpalanayike, where he says Sankalpa Vikalpatmaka Chitta Vritti Jale iti. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
She has to
Correct. Each one of these is you now when you listen to these kritis and when you do puja, they all start relating much better because you've understood the big picture.
Absolutely. Dhanyavadam.
Hello, madam. This is Mahabala.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my wife has a question.
So I was, thank you, ma'am. Ajnana and Maya, you said were micro and macro manifestations, right? But Ajnana can be removed with Jnana, and Maya can also be removed at the macro level?
No, Maya at macro level cannot be removed at all. It's anadi.
Right. So, but then how if they are parallel at the micro and macro? Comparison, it's not relatable, right?
Yeah. So one thing we have to remember is this is at the micro level, which is the individual level. So at the individual level, Ajnana Nivritti can be achieved through Jnanam, and we are going to talk about liberation, etc. But at the macro level, when you go to the macro level, think about it. Is it at all possible to remove the Ajnanam of every individual, every jiva in this world, right? It's not possible. So that is why the answer to that question is no. Maya is anadi. It will always be there. We continue. As long as jivas are there, Maya will continue, and there will be jivas, there will be papa punyam, and the cycle will continue.
Okay.
But during the pralaya, it will all, even the Maya also will.
No. We'll discuss pralaya in detail. Maya is still very much there. All of this will resolve into sukshma prapancha. That's all.
Potential in the potential form.
Sukshma prapancha. It won't be. It is very much there. It's not going away anywhere.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Anybody else? I think everybody has spoken up. Okay. Rajashri.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Continuing from what the other said, so is it that Maya at the macro level is the material cause for the universe? Because like Karana Shariram is the cause for the Jiva's next birth. So Maya is the material
Absolutely, cause. It is the material cause.
So the okay. And
yes.
Brahman will be the intelligent cause.
Brahman is the intelligent cause. Yes, if you want to technically differentiate Upadana Karanam and Nimitta Karanam. I didn't want to use the two terms now in this class because it is a very basic introductory class. So people get confused. Yes. Okay. You're right. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Then Ramaya Narayanan, did you get a chance to speak?
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
You said the karma is the reason for the cause of gross body, right?
Yes.
So what is liberation? Liberation is getting removal of all karmas, which as per...
Only for this question, I would request you to please wait for a couple of more classes because we need to do a little more before we get to that answer. Okay.
And one more thing, you were giving some cross references when you were giving lecture, like from Upanishad quotings or something, and also some. Will you be able to put them also in your slides later?
No problem. I'll try and locate them. Yes, sure.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
You want the Upanishad Gita references and all? I'll do that.
Yeah. If you can add them. I know that you cannot put them in the slide right now because that you may not be coming prepared to tell that. But once you have that from the recording or from your memory, if you give that also in the slides.
I'll do that. I'll do that for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the excellent, explanations. I'm very much thankful to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's another question here. Is Maya part of Brahman or different? Is Maya part of Brahman or different? Let us wait for some more classes. Is Maya Anadi like Brahman? Yes, Maya is Anadi like Brahman. Yes. Okay, now there's one more person. Nagashri, please go ahead.
Namaskara, Mahoday. This Karana Prapancha is supported by Brahman, and the Karana Sharira is supported by Atma. So then what is matter and Maya? Which is inherent and which is potential in this matter and Maya?
Karana Prapancha is Maya.
Okay.
Only one more name for Karana Prapancha is Maya. Is that clear now?
Yes, madam. Then what is matter?
Matter is also that only. Matter in potential form is Karana Prapancha, Maya. That's all.
Matter in potential form is Maya.
Is Maya, Karana Prapancha. They're all same. Okay.
Okay. Dhanyavada.
Then I think everybody's got a chance to speak up. Okay. So we'll meet next week. And yeah.
Maya.
Did you send a question? No, right?
Yeah, but she didn't.